today is the second installation of my anthropology series and why I fell in love with anthropology. Now, in the first video, I mentioned two terms that I wanted to chat about today, which are really pertinent with regards to bias, even workforce planning, when we're thinking about interviewing and onboarding individuals, employment equity. So it's got quite a wide range of application when we start to think about ourselves as employers, and then also to consider in terms of our personal daily life experiences as we come into contact with other individuals. Now, I come from South Africa, which, if you didn't know, has 12 official languages. It's probably one of the most culturally diverse countries, I dare say, probably in the world. We've got lots of imports, so we've got lots of people that have chosen to make their life in South Africa, and of course then we have all of the tribes within South Africa itself. I also am privileged enough to have made my way over to Portugal because of my own cultural background, because my mother is Portuguese and my father is German. And living in Portugal and close by to Lisbon specifically, it in and of itself is an enormous melting pot of cultures and individuals from all walks of life. In fact, on Saturday, I got to meet an incredible human being that spans two incredible spheres, one being shamanism and spirituality, and the other being a leading AI consultant to world leaders. So absolutely diverse in terms of topics, interests, and skills just within one human being. So those two terms that I mentioned in the first video was ethnocentrism and cultural relativism. Now, ethnocentrism is, in layman's terms, really the concept or the idea that we sit back and we judge another person's culture with or through the eyes of our own. So it really is the space of judgment. So we could think of, for instance, and this can happen in religion too. So one person might say, I eat pork and I love pork. And so therefore you must also eat pork, but they might be speaking to a Jewish person, and we know with kosher rules that they wouldn't engage in eating pork. And so ethnocentrism would stand, in defiance of someone else's culture, and to say, that's bad, that's wrong, and my culture is right. And so it's this place of judgment. And this place of lacking empathy and compassion, or even an interest in understanding why that other culture might not have the same social rules or norms as my own. The second is cultural relativism, which is what most anthropologists, that's what we're trained really to cultivate, is this idea that we don't necessarily abandon our own social norms or standards or values, so things that in our culture we might hold dear. But when we enter into the space of seeing another person and another person's culture, we get curious. So we ask questions and we dive a little bit deeper. We try to put ourselves in their shoes. We try to cultivate empathy. But fundamentally, the basis of that is that we don't compare culture. We don't say one is bad and one is good, or one is better, one is worse. And, there's a tendency to think about ourselves in these relative terms, right? So the idea of cultural relativism is to say that every culture just is. There is no measurement stick. There is no place of judgment or even comparison for that matter. And catch oneself. If you think about a tribe that is sitting in the middle of the jungle, and interestingly, I've had some conversations with some people that have traveled now regularly to Costa Rica, as an example, to go and sit and learn the wisdom of those leaders who are not exposed to technology, or very, very, very little technology. And so think about those individuals and how they live, and how you live and all the access that you have to internet, to running water, to electricity, to perhaps even a wider variety of food, and carefully start to see if there's any judgment there. Do you think that your culture is better off for having access to all of this? Or, do you sit and say, oh, I really want to have that kind of life? And immediately there begins to have some judgment. It's not to say the judgment is bad or good. It's just to begin to notice, because as we start to get into spaces and places that we share with other people, it's simply to generate the awareness within our own bias and in our own way of thinking that we have a tendency to kind of paint the world black or white in relation to our own experiences. And so cultural relativism really tries to invite us into a space of non-comparison. It is neither good nor bad. It's neither better nor worse. It just is. And for that culture, it's perfect for them.